Hi, my name's Kathleen Arthur, and I'm a grandma warrior. I come from the state of Washington, and I'm here in Washington, D.C. advocating for foster care changes that are very sorely needed. We are sitting here looking at Congress in this condo, and outside of these walls, there are about 30 dedicated people here to have one goal in mind, and that one goal is to try to have foster care reform. We're here with one clear message. Too many of our grandchildren and children are going into foster care when there is loving and capable kin at home. This must stop. Children belong with their family. We're here in Washington, D.C. to beg for the very lives of our children. Foster care outcomes, no matter which study you look at, are bad as compared to kin placements. Kin loves their children. It shouldn't need any more explanation than that. So this problem is really urgent. Over the last 10 years, 3 of my grandchildren have been placed in foster care when there was loving and capable kin available. I'm a nurse, my husband's an engineer, but we couldn't understand why they weren't going to give us our grandchildren. We did find out later though. Our story has a happy ending, but I'm here to tell you that I witnessed a degree of fraud and injustice that should never, ever be allowed to occur in the United States of America. We now have a system that is targeting children for foster care entry. Senator Wyden, our federal senator from Oregon, said a system that favors foster care entry over loving kin must go into the dustbin of history, and it must. So I've been a foster mother for over 30 years, and I've been a nurse for over 30 years. And I've been working very diligently on foster care reform for about 10 years now. And I've watched dozens and dozens of state and federal legislative meetings and hearings and committees. And there is a theme throughout. What's happening is that our legislators are requesting information and objective data and accountability from Children's Services, both state and federal, and they're both getting the same answer. All sorts of shades of no. The data is not being released from Children's Services to the state legislators so that they have what they need to be able to enforce some things. So there's no accountability, and the Children's Services are essentially ignoring them, which I thought was funny. How can these legislators have to subpoena the agency that they're funding to get basic information? Senator Sabinoff said, "We are swallowing up our children alive in a sea of bureaucracy. We can't seem to stop it. What can we do?" We can't seem to stop it. That's from a federal senator in the Finance Committee. But Senator Sabinoff's right. Congress can't stop it. And here are some, this is really funny. I started off this quest to save my grandchildren from the hell of foster care, and I ended up advocating for budgetary reform, but they're actually tied to each other. Without budgetary reform, we're never going to get our kids consistently out of foster care into the loving arms of kin, or stop the adoption Cash for Kids program. So bear with me for a minute. This is dry stuff to most, but to me it's pretty fascinating. So here's some quick examples of how the current budget structure has created a perverse incentive system because of the current headcount distribution. Unstoppable psychotropic drug overuse in the foster care population, favoring foster care over kin placements, and the inability of good state legislators to pass good laws to reduce the rate of foster care entry. Why? Let me repeat this. Reducing a state's foster care headcount, the number of children entering foster care, would simultaneously reduce the state's 4E budget, because less foster kids equals less money for the states. I've been in there in that meeting when the light went on and the calculator came out, and all of a sudden the room realized that it didn't matter what the law was. We are, as a state, not going to be able to pass a law that reduces foster care because of the payment structure is head count, and we cannot, as a state, afford to take the financial hit. I believe that that is the very definition of a perverse incentive system. Our current antiquated federal budget process is the result of a 1974 Budget Act written 42 years ago. The underlying goal of this budget process was to grow government and spend more, and they've accomplished that. So this is really complicated stuff, and I don't have time to go into all of the details, but there's an excellent detailed synopsis by C-SPAN on April 18th this year, 2016. And it talks about exactly how the current federal budget has gotten to the point where now Congress no longer has its greatest superpower, which is the power of the purse. So, look that up. The bottom line is that the crafters of the 1974 Budget Act forgot to add critical checks and balances into the Budget Act. And the lacking of checks and balances within that budget process has led Congress to where it is now, with losing the control of the purse. Currently, Congress only has power over 1/3 of the budget that's called the 302A portion. So Congress gets to vote over 1/3 of the budget that's available federally. The remaining 2/3 of the budget, the huge, vast majority, they don't get to vote on. They don't get to vote yay, they don't get to vote nay. It's just on a rolling, unsustainable autopilot with no say from Congress. So the bottom line is, and the direct result of this is, that Congress is currently powerless to control the purse because they no longer have the power of the vote, yay or nay, over 2/3 of our federal dollars. Congress has lost fiscal control over the very departments that they fund. When you throw children into a pot, a soup pot, that has no accountability, transparency, or oversight, a sour smell begins to emerge, and we have a sour smell emerging all over America right now. This is Congress's most urgent task, to get back the power of the purse so that Congress can take our children's services to task for irresponsible actions. Our federal government is teetering dangerously out of balance, and it's urgent that Congress regain the control of the purse. This is my favorite quote. Government is not reason. It is not eloquence. It is force like fire. It is a dangerous servant and a fearful master. And never for a moment should it be left to irresponsible action. And Congress is leaving our country to irresponsible action of the children's services and other departments because it no longer has the power of the purse. Period. This statement is as true today as it was when George Washington uttered it over 200 years ago. And now our dangerous servant has become our fearful master. So there's only one way to solve this problem. Congress must craft a new budget to replace the 1974 Budget Act. The new budget process must include clear constitutional direction for every dollar spent. 2, absolute transparency in the process. 3, clear goals with time frame, and most importantly, this is critical, guys, exit strategies for programs that don't work. If they don't meet the defined goal, their object, we should have a process for eliminating programs that don't work and be able to creatively adapt programs that do work. We need to have measurements of goals tied to 20% of the distribution fund. Reward entities for good behavior, not reward for headcount bad behavior. We have to have, this is critical too, independent accountability with dual independent tension built into the methodology, and direct reporting to Congress, not to the Children's Administration. What do you think happens to the statistics when Children's Administration gathers them and they look badly? They're not reported faithfully. You may lie with statistics or just not provide the data as their time and true method. And this is really one of the most critical ones that is not currently in the Families First Act that is going before Congress soon. We have to stop the adoptive incentive program, period. This is extremely important. What happens is that if a child is made a foster child and that foster child is then adopted to someone, the department gets a cash bonus of in between $5,000 and $10,000 for each child. Got a family of 4, those children are disabled, the department will get $40,000 bonus from 4E funding for providing a foster child to an adoptee. That's cash for kids. The adoption incentive program has evolved. The adoption incentive program has evolved into a perverse form of government-sponsored child trafficking. So the new budget needs to have a payment methodology that is not per capita head count for bad behavior, but population distribution plus objective measures, 80-20 plan. Theodore Roosevelt said complaining without problem solving is called whining. So I have some suggestions, 3 of them. 1, Senate, consider reconciliation, a rarely used process to address these debt and budget processes. And it has to be an emergency for reconciliation to really be used. This is an emergency. If not now, when? We need to really get this budget issue taken care of. 2, House, Federal House, declare a truce. You must declare a truce. You must work collaboratively on the formation of a new budget process. This is your highest priority because all of the new laws you guys are over there working so diligently on that are being introduced are just ink on paper without teeth. If you don't have the force of enforcement on these laws, the laws really are just ink on paper. You're just spinning your wheels until you get back the power of the purse. So that's the good news. The Congress can fix this. The bad news is, even if Congress worked with lightning speed, the wheels of Congress grind very, very slowly, and it will take from 4 to 8 years from start to finish to get a new budget methodology written and actually functioning. That's at lightning speed, and can't wait that long. We can't wait that long. Our children have a short shelf life, and 8 years is an entire childhood lost. So we need solutions that will start to work now. And I've got another one of those. There's been a handful of brave governors who have taken the bull by the horns and issued executive orders to restructure their state children's administration at the state level. Thank you, Governor Inslee, for your bravery and courage to sign the Executive Order 1603. Children's lives will be saved. Children will go to kin and not strangers, thanks to you. This is a bold move, and it's going up the stream of a lot of corruption. And really, in an election year in particular, this was just a bold and a brave move, and I cannot emphasize how thankful I am that he stepped up to the plate. And all of the states can do this. So a gubernatorial executive order can take the federal funding that's come from the federal government, put it into a state pot of money, and then distribute the funds per capita tied to objective measures. Done. Just the funneling of those funds alone to where they're just getting paid to do their job instead of bonuses to collect children and adopt them out. If the payment structure is just per capita, which we also have a fairly stable degree of mental illness, drug addiction, and that sort of thing throughout the human population. So it should be per capita. We are always going to have some degree of need for intervention when children are in harm's way that don't have available kin to take care of them. So funnel of money. The states can also insist upon transparency. There's Sammy's Law in California, to where the social workers are now required to wear body cameras. We need to do that. That protects the child more than anyone else, and that's our #1 goal, is to protect the children. Transparency, accountability, objective measures for services were performed, and last but not least, the governor can insist that all funds tied and given to the Children's Administration are precursored by the signing of an advance directive by parents. And what this is I think I mentioned I was a nurse, and way back in the day, we started this thing called the Advance Directive for Medical Care. And so it's the same concept. If you have a mama who has late-stage breast cancer and she's really high risk for relapse and dying, as part of her nursing care plan, you would put in an Advance Directive for Parenting. She would pre-authorize 1 or 2 or 3 people to care for her child legally and give them legal authority in the event she relapses. And just take that and just plop it right onto the #1 reason for entry into foster care of children, which is drug addiction of their parent. This are children being punished for their children's action. And so if we just go ahead and tie the advance directive to the funds that they have